agenda, and a lot of young folks are in the crowd. I just want to say in advance that once we get through the ceremonial portion where we acknowledge a lot of the achievement of some of our students, parents and students are free to go after that happens, or you're welcome to stay until after. I'd like to open this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. The Danvers Public Schools is a dynamic community of independent learners dedicated to respect, responsibility, creativity, and the pursuit of academic and personal excellence. This meeting is being broadcast on Danvers Community Access Television. Is anyone in the audience recording these proceedings? Okay. All right. I'd like to begin with items of interest. We'll start. Is there anything from the school committee? Okay. Any items of interest from the community? Hearing none. Okay. Superintendent, Mr. Bauer?
Yes, before we begin, next month we'll have DECA come, and they had an outstanding showing again at the state competition. You know, we have over 200 students involved in DECA, which is our entrepreneurial program, and they did a great job, so we'll have them come to the April meeting. So just want to give a hats off to DECA and all the students and the advisors. And ready for our opening, which we always begin with our student representatives for the student representative report. Olivia and Julia, take it away.
Thank you. So this month, or over the last month, we are going to recognize the high school's accomplishments of some of the things that happened. We don't have any updates from the elementary schools today. But like you mentioned, Danvers DECA competed in the state competition at the end of February. We had about 131 competitors, and again, our program has about over 200. Some of the results that came out of that is we had 51 finalists, 36 ICDC qualifiers, and then 6 students earned leadership spots to advance to the ICDC competition.
So this past weekend, our Winter Color Guard performed at the Spartans Winter Invitational. And there's only 2 more opportunities to see their winter performance. So March 22nd at New Bedford, and then March 29th at the NESBA Finals. Jumping off of that, our theater department competed in the annual Drama Fest. They had a show called Submerged about a submarine, I'm pretty sure. Hope Panagoulias received a Judges Award for her performance, and Oscar Armetta also received a Judges Award for his set design.
Next, we want to talk a little bit about the Falcon 50 Challenge. So the Falcon 50 Challenge that we have at our school is a year-long initiative designed to promote kindness, community engagement, and personal growth. So every single day, there is a new challenge that is set over the announcements in the morning. So it encourages students to come in and, throughout that day, try to do that challenge. The challenge is going to close next month. Whoever the community block in the school that has the most Falcon 50s that were logged will get a pizza party. And then the Falcon Ventures range from personal development to acts of kindness. So there's 50 different, there's like the Falcon 50, different challenges on there that students can complete, and they range from all different things. So it's not just about kindness. They're all just kind of spread out.
And finally, this is happening right now. I don't know the exact numbers. I'm assuming there's around 50 of them. Students that are currently in New York City on like this art field trip. I know yesterday they got to see The Outsiders on Broadway, which won Best Musical. It's an awesome show. And they also visited the Museum of Modern Art. Today, I know they've been at the Met and all around like the Rockefeller Center area, all that. So this is a great opportunity for the people involved in art and theater, but also anyone that hasn't been able to visit New York City yet, because it's an awesome experience. Yeah, that's all we have for this month. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions or comments from the committee? Thank you again, Julie and Olivia.
All right, I think the moment we're all waiting for, the DPW Electric Division calendar presentation. Come on up, please. We have some great participants, and I can't wait to get my calendar.
Students who are here for the awards, if you want to come up front. Don't be shy.
Come on, don't be shy.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Erica Bisconti, and I am the Recycling and Energy Conservation Coordinator for the Danvers Department of Public Works. And I would like to thank our school committee for allowing me to present our 2025 DPW Student Calendar Contest winners. This year's calendar recognizes the creative talents of our sixth grade art students at the Holton Richmond Middle School in Miss Bond's class, whose illustrations help demonstrate this year's topic of stormwater pollution prevention. Our winners, along with their fellow peers, were presented the importance of stormwater pollution prevention and how it is supported here in the town of Danvers. Topics included discussions around the fundamentals of pollution prevention, simple ways to reduce pollution at home, and how important it is for our Danvers residents to help keep contaminants out of our storm drains. After this discussion, students were encouraged to educate Danvers residents about what they had learned, with topics ranging from yard waste cleanup, reducing litter, keeping harmful substances out of our waterways, and protecting our local environment. Our winners did an amazing job creating illustrations that will educate our residents all year long. Their hard work has helped make a difference by teaching our community to help protect our environment and encouraging our residents to do their part to practice sustainable habits. And a big congratulations goes out to all of our participants and our contest winners. So at this time, I'm going to invite Ms. Bond up to announce our winners, and I'll hand out the certificate. So once you hear your name, you can come over and grab your certificate.
And don't go away, we'll have a photo opportunity.
This evening, we're just going to announce the award winners that were able to come, but we have already announced at school and online all the 12 winners. Here with us tonight, Gabriella Croto. Haley Cummings. Matthew D'Angelo. Allie D'Antonio. Willow Douglas. Anessa Lee. Nathan Martins. And our other winners who weren't able to be present tonight are Julia Bisegni, Scar Cunneth, Colby McLaughlin, Eliana Nays, and Grace White.
We'll get a photo if the school committee can come up.
Parents, please.
Figure we could do the kiddos first, the school committee, then bring the folks. Parents, if you want to get a quick photo, then we'll get everybody in. Big smiles. School committee, want to hop in? how this works? We'll make it work. All right, I'd like to call our athletic director, Drew Betts, to come forward. We have more recognition for our winter sport athletes. We have 2 state champions amongst us.
That better? All right. All right. Good evening, everybody. I want to just first thank the school committee, Mr. Bauer and Ms. Wormers, for inviting us here today. We obviously have 2 student athletes that have had some incredible accomplishments sort of throughout this whole year, but we're really highlighted at the back end of this winter. We don't have some great certificates to pass off to them, but we will give them a little bit of swag to show a little bit of appreciation for all of their hard work. So the first individual is someone that feels like he's here more than I am for different recognition, but is our senior, Will Conklin. So Will was the Division IV state champion in the 2 mile, and that's just one of his many accomplishments sort of throughout his high school career as he gets ready to head into his last season this spring. But Will was earned the NEC Cross Country Runner of the Year. He was the D4 Runner of the Meet in the indoor state meet. He's a 2023 D2 state champion for the cross country team. He was selected as a Boston Globe and Herald All-Scholastic. And as he's continued to have sort of success this year, he was selected as the Moynihan Lumber Athlete of the Month for November, the MIA Student Athlete of the Month for December, the Salem News Cross Country Runner of the Year, all while also being a high honor roll student. So before we kind of give a round of applause and recognition for Will, I just want to say it's been a pleasure to sort of watch him work over these past 2 years, because as he kind of walks around the building, you would really have no idea, just based off of how humble and sort of kind he is, that he has had so much athletic success. So, Will, congratulations. And I would say, Will, don't go too far, because I'm sure they're going to want your picture as well. The next individual we're going to recognize is Kaylee Westcott. So being just my second year here, I'll say I was very new to gymnastics. But over the past 2 years, seeing Kaylee and the rest of the team compete has been incredible. So I think what was something that was very new to me is in gymnastics, it feels like there's so much pressure. You are the lone person competing, and everybody is essentially watching you. And the way that Kaylee carries herself into every single meet, into every single competition, is just incredible. She's a model of consistency, and I think this year, really seeing the opportunity to see her at Tewksbury High School in the individual performance, and then again 2 weekends ago at Algonquin at the state championship performance, she has just been so consistent in everything that she does that is just, it's really a pleasure to watch, and I look forward to seeing those continued success over the next 2 years. So I just want to say thank you for allowing us the opportunity to watch you, and congratulations. As you guys can see here, so she earned a state championship in the all-around, the vault, the beam, and the floor, and still will have finished third in the bars. So it was really, really impressive, and has also helped lead the team to a second place finish when she was in 8th grade, a third place finish as a freshman, and a 4th place finish this past year. So Kaylee, congratulations. just as a quick thank you, I also want to say thank you guys for always allowing us to sort of recognize these student athletes for all their hard work.
Mr. Betts, are we doing pictures?
I think, yeah,
I think we need to do some
I
pictures.
think so. All right, so we can get Kaylee and Will right back up here, please.
Hi, guys. Nice to see you.
I know Will has his crew out to cheer him along, as well as Kaylee's family. Just want to say it's been a pleasure watching our winter sports as much as possible. I didn't get to gymnastics, but followed just a great, great year. Looking for great things continuing your career in their cross-country teams. Just really sportsmanship, camaraderie, effort in both sports, individualized, but they're really strong bringing their teams together. So very proud of both programs. Congratulations. And I just think it's important to note that, you know, not only do we have outstanding athletics, but we have a lot of great programs at our school, the DECA, performing arts, and we'll have more recognition. But so many great things are happening in our elementary and middle schools as well. So it's hard to try to bring up as many as possible, but it's just a great opportunity. So right now, I'm going to turn this over to Mary. At our upcoming subcommittee meeting, we'll discuss our mid-year accomplishments, but just wanted to give a brief overview tonight of the format of what that will be. And then after the subcommittee in April, we'll bring forward the results of that subcommittee to share again with the committee. Okay? Take it away, Mary.
Great. So I thought I would share our mid-year accomplishments. Halfway through the year, you kind of look back at your improvement plans that you set up in August. And so we're looking back on that. I thought we'd share some of the really speaking very broadly about some of the things we've accomplished this year so far or working on as we move forward. So if you remember from our strategic plan and our improvement plans, we have 3 goals across the year that we work on. You know, improving student achievement, cultivating safe and supportive learning environments, and cultivating also a sense of belonging. So for student achievement, we've been working on, as we say all the time, the MTSS for academics, which here it's focused on ELA and math, and we really are working on strengthening it at K-5 and building it at 6th grade in the WIN block. So that's been a new structure for Houghton Richmond, and they've been working hard on it this year. And then we're also working on supporting the academics in grades 7 through 12 through structures that exist already. So the long block in grade 7 and 8, and the community block in grade 9 through 12. Additionally, this year we always do teacher study groups, but our focus on those study groups this year has been to really strengthen our Tier 1 instruction. It's a district goal. And so the elementary team put together strengthening our universal instruction study group is really continuing our exploration of the science of learning and implementing our phonics and our comprehension programs. We had participants, though, from ELA in the middle school and at the high school level. So it's been really great to have, like, talking about reading K through 12. So that was great. We have applied learning study groups, both Holton Richmond's just starting theirs, and then we have one at the high school that's continuing. Now we're on the applying that and really making sure that we have a pilot group ready to go on the applied learning. Middle school science has a curriculum review, and the arts teachers, K to 12, all working together on a arts and cultural vitality alignment, and that's through the DESE grant from DESE. So it's been really cool to have not just the performing arts teachers together, but also the visual arts teachers working on that group. We've adopted new curriculum. It's listed there this year, and lots of support from the curriculum directors on helping teachers implement that, and then also the providing professional development. And then finally, as administrative team, we've been working on learning walks. So we've been focused on understanding instructional expectations, really around like having clear expectations for students, communicating them to students, and assessing their understanding of those learning expectations. If you move over to the safe and supportive learning environments, we're working very hard, as we talk about a lot in these meetings, is establishing a MTSS, or multi-tier system of supports for social emotional learning, behavior, and mental health in our schools. And so we're really working hard on setting a strong tier 1 curriculum, but then for SEL and now behavioral expectations. So we really worked hard on setting expected behavior for students across the school in all different settings. We are collecting data around behavior referrals. We're analyzing that data, and we're using that to assess the impact those expected behaviors expectations are having on students. And finally, Dan's convened several safety committee meetings. We have the district safety committee with that has community members, the police and fire, as well as union and DPW sitting at the table, along with administrators. We have a threat assessment team and the DPS wellness committee. And then finally, sense of belonging. We have sense of belonging teams at each of the elementary schools. They are working to develop the MTSS for SEL and behavior at their schools. And they're doing really yeoman's work this year and on really getting those structures up and running. We really worked on the SEL Tier 1 curriculum. There's a study group here at the middle school that is working on defining that, strengthening the lessons and finding new lessons for them to use. But what's been great is that we've worked K to 12 to review a program, SEL lesson resources from a program called Wayfinder. And we finally have purchased that resource base so that we'll have alignment K to 12 in our SEL programming. And we screened SEL for each student, K through 8. The middle school, 6 through 8, has been doing it for a few years now, but then the elementary level, K to 5, we were able to do this fall, and we'll go and screen again in the spring, just like the middle school does. And then finally, we have a team. It's called Culturally Responsive Practices Leadership Academy. We went through a 3-year program with DESE, and we're done that 3 years, but now we're carrying on that work, and we're really working on integrating sense of belonging and inclusive concepts into our district work. So we've met a few times this year. And then finally, our meeting on March 24th, we will report to you mid-year data that we've recently done at the end of January, beginning of February. And that data will be presented for elementary ELA. At Holton Richmond, they'll present the math, their high-ready math data, and then at the high school, they start a new program, IXL, so they have IXL ELA data, and they also are going to come to us with some trends that they found out of there. We had midterms in January, and like the departments have sat down and analyzed that data and have some trends to share with you.
Well, thank you, Mary. Any questions? Good, Mike.
So this is like a teaser?
Yeah, this is the teaser
You're
for
teasing
coming
it?
attractions.
Okay. Thank you.
But I felt like I wanted to share too, like the work that we are doing in the district, so you can see kind of the comprehensive look at what we're doing.
Oh, you pulled me in. I'm good.
Okay.
I'll be there.
Anybody else? Mike? Eric?
No, just looking forward to the full presentation.
Okay, great.
Same here. Thank you, Mary.
Okay. We will bring all that information back to the committee in April as well, just an overview of that subcommittee meeting. So I just wanted to provide an update of my goals. We're beyond the midpoint of the year, but when it comes into May, I'll be able to present the goals in terms of where they are with evidence provided. So I just did a quick run through in terms of each goal. I'm not going to read through each strand, but the first piece is improving student achievement across the district. So all the key action items, the 4 biggies, are all in progress. And a lot of this will come out with results in the mid-year accomplishment meeting in March. So I can report that everything is moving along as well. The big piece here, the learning walks that have been implemented are outstanding. It's been great to collaborate, bring all of our administrators into the building. It's been well received by our staff. It's an opportunity to really get in and see the student learning, and we're looking to make more moves next year and possibly involve teachers, which I think is a very important piece. So we have a big meeting April 29th to solidify plans for next year. So I think we're in a good place here in terms of the curriculum being implemented, and again, looking forward to seeing the data that will be presented in the May 24th subcommittee meeting. Secondly, the alignment of district practices, and one of the things just through last year's entry into the district, just seeing that a lot of protocols need to be improved, updated. So that's a big piece of this goal, and working with our central office team as well as the other administrators to just really fine-tune, hone in, and if there are absence of protocols, make sure they're there. Very basic things, but very important so that we can be more efficient as a central office to best serve the needs of our schools. And once we complete this year and update our protocols, then we're aligning with our employee handbook, which needs to be updated. I don't think it's been updated since 2014, but we are getting there on that. So that's all in place. And I just gave a small grid. This is just a small grid because we have a working sheet where you can see the breakdown. This doesn't have technology on there, doesn't have transportation, doesn't have the curriculum piece, but as we go through, the list is a lot bigger, but I just wanted to give a small thumbnail sample of the work that we are doing that I think will improve our services as a district. And lastly is development of a strategic plan, and that work has been going very well. We've established our steering committee and really have our vision statement is, I would say, 95% done. And Mary's fine-tuned, and it says 90%, but it's actually more than that. Ultimately, we're looking to create the portrait vision of a graduate that can align with K-12, and that's going to be very important for our work to tie together our strategic plans. So that work has really been, I think, very impressive and very proud of this work so far. The next slide is just where we have the final vision statement is just about done, and then the competencies our graduates will be able to, the 6 pieces. And I'll present this in more detail as we go along, but this is feedback from various stakeholders, right? We have faculty, we have students that have provided the community, school committee, right? We had select board, we had large groups come in. This has been refined several times. So, and we've shared this at the Superintendent's Advisory Council meetings, and had a really good meeting last month to really hone in. We're just about there, then we're getting ready. Once we do one more pass-through, we'll share with the community. So I think we're in a good place, and that is an update on the goals. We kept it simple, but I think that is key because there's a lot of work that's being done, and we'll continue to do so. If you have any questions or anything regarding the goals.
Yeah, no question, but I really, really like the way this vision statement's coming together because that's really the foundation of what you build everything on, and I think it's well thought out and relevant to what we want from our students and future citizens. It's really nice work, and looking forward to, of course, the full and final presentation. Anyone else?
I agree with you. Just said, for the simple reason, I probably mistakenly attended a lot of these meetings, and but it was still good to be in the room because, as Dan just said, there was so much just meaningful and authentic sharing that came from all these groups to help really inform this goal. And the other thing I do want to say is just circle back to your learning walks. I want to thank you again. And it was impressive to go on that with you for a short amount of time. but to see the granddaughter of my high school English teacher teaching at Danvers High School was incredibly meaningful. I liked him very much. He was a great man, and it's just nice to see his granddaughter being a member of our staff. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bauer.
You're very welcome. And next up is a special education update. We've provided updates throughout the year. Tonight we have our three assistant directors. We have Marla Dela Cruz, who's our secondary assistant director. We have Derek Munyon, who's our elementary assistant director. Then we have Angelique Delacoste, who is our out-of-district coordinator. So they're here to present, just giving updates in terms of where we are and the progress that they've been making.
Great, thank you. So tonight we'll provide some key updates on 4 areas, specifically looking at professional development, special education programs, and continuum of services. Too far away. Yeah, there we go. Students with disabilities profile, and short and long-term planning. Next slide, perfect. So specifically with the professional development piece here, we're looking at some professional development that was recently provided by Constellations Behavioral Services. So as you know, we worked with Constellations this year.
I'm sorry. I got to ask you to
back.
lean into that
Yeah,
mic.
sorry about that. Yeah. All right. So is that better? Yeah. So professional development by Constellations Behavioral Services. As you know, they completed a separate audit for us this past spring, or this past winter. And based on the information that was provided from that audit, developed specific training goals for us. And so here you'll see a summary of training that we have planned for March through June of this year. And so down the bottom there where it says content, it has an overview of what is being targeted in each training after school. These trainings are specifically for IAs, instructional assistants that work within the programs. And this is meant to be a sequential training, so it builds on each month, and you know, something that's learned in March is built upon in the following month, so on and so forth. And our plan is to continue with this for the remainder of this school year on the half days that we have, and then we're currently working on building out a plan for the next school year so that we have all of that mapped out and ready to go for these programs as we head into the new year.
Another recommendation that came out of the audit was centered around creating programs for students with language-based learning disabilities. In order to do that, we needed to redefine who we were, what we were doing, and also vertically align it. So we've been looking at K through 8, and in February of 2025, we met with Landmark Outreach and our consultants, and we looked at grades 3 to 8 and create that alignment. So at this point, we are going to revise our master schedules for both elementary and middle school to ensure that all of our learners have the right service in place. And we are going to be able to identify and schedule trainings for those individuals that will be supporting our language-based programs.
Okay, so in planning for special education services across the district, we wanted to look at the impact of lack of literacy instruction during the pandemic and which students are progressing through the grades while still struggling with literacy skills needed for more complex texts. So we conducted an analysis of which specialized reading instruction methodologies individual staff members have received training in. We did that in January, and this analysis showed that we still need to provide more reading training for our special educators. We found that there's teachers that are trained in a variety of methodologies and specialized programs, but we need more educators trained across the district in order to increase our capacity to deliver the instruction so that it can be delivered with fidelity and consistency across the schools. Then we also applied for and received a federal targeted special education program improvement grant. And we're using this money to consult with Crafting Minds to provide training to our special educators in grades K to 6 with a framework for assessing, interpreting, planning, and delivering instruction for students with specific reading disabilities, and or related needs. And this will begin during the optional PD days in June 2025 and August 2025. The next steps will be to schedule school-based consultations with Crafting Minds for the 25-26 school year. And by doing this, it will ensure that Crafting Minds will work with teachers, groups of teachers, as they implement the skills that they learned during the optional PD days to make sure that the instruction is being delivered with consistency across the district. And then for our short and long-term planning, the recommendation was that the new special education leadership team should begin an in-depth analysis of special services, programs, and demographic trends. And so we started by utilizing Medicaid funds claimed against student services to the district as a funding source. In order to do that, we met with New England Medical Billing representative, the Director of Technology, the Director of Student Services, and Student Services Administrative Assistants to identify claiming obstacles within the Power School system. And then we met with nurses and the New England Medical Billing representative to discuss claiming services using the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, the SNAP program. So our next steps will be for the nurses, they'll begin claiming services, begin claiming students for individual services and create a claiming process within our software system for other related service providers. One of the things that became clear was that our system, our Power School system, there's not an ease of claiming within that system. And so we're working on creating directions for service providers to make it easier for them. We want to create modules so that it's very explicit and clear how the service providers can enter their claims into the system. Any questions for any of us?
Yeah, thank you for that. I definitely have a question because, well, first a comment, then a question. I mean, I continue to be impressed. I remember, the challenge with getting the funding for what we wanted, and then, having consultants come in and having our whole special education system being audited. So again, kudos, because there's action happening, and we're justifying what's been done. The portion that really stuck out to me, it's not only the professional development, but also then the deployment of that to provide additional services to our students, and then to really take an assessment of what students are still being impacted post-pandemic, which I think is critical. I mean, it's something that my wife and I discuss. I have a daughter and son in the school, so it's something that comes up quite a bit. My question is specifically in regards to this medical billing. Is this something that we did before, or has it never happened? Is it something that offsets a budgetary item that we had, or will this funding bring in outside services to kind of remedy any challenges? I haven't heard about this, so I'm curious to learn more about it.
That's a great question. So my understanding is that it was utilized. It was inconsistent, I believe, as far as the usage of the system itself. And so we're really looking at trying to make it easier for everyone to be able to claim said services. It can often be just that little decrease, or making it a little bit easier for folks to be able to document the services they're providing can make that much bigger of a difference for providers. So that's our understanding. I believe we sent out the new consents in January, our administrative assistant, and we have roughly around 100 consents that have come back thus far this year, new consents, which is great.
I'm sorry, just
100
what?
Consents. Sorry, so we need consent in order to be able to,
okay.
Sorry about that.
I'm thinking of dollars and cents. That's kind of where my head is at.
No. It's my first time on the mic.
Like 100 cents. Okay, that's $1.
Yeah. So 100 new consents. And so I checked with the office today, and I believe we had about 400 also in the system. I'm not sure if that includes the 100 that just came in. So it's certainly been done before. It's just the consistency that we're looking at.
And just a follow-up to that for clarification, is that to bring in outside resources? Okay.
Yep.
In the past, I mean, is it a matter of if the claim isn't made, an outside source isn't brought in, or is it something that the town and the and it impacted our budget. That's kind of what I'm trying to understand. And
Sure.
the last question on that is, what is the annual estimate
Yeah.
of claims?
Sure.
That I don't know if you have one yet, but
It's a good question. I do not. You have more experience.
No, it's okay. So it's funding that is returned back to the district. It does not affect what parents do with private pay and what they do with their own doctor, so it's just a revenue that comes in. It comes quarterly, so we have to really start thinking about, we need to meet our quota, so if our folks are writing down all of their services and claiming it, then we get a percentage of that claim. So it does come in throughout the entire year through different buckets. And what was your question? You had a specific question?
is there
The amount varies. It really all depends. If we meet our quota and then how many consents we get. Our consents do not need to be, we give them out per year. So not per year. So we need, say Marla gets it, Marla's parent can give it to us once, and then every year we say, hey, we still have permission to claim, and that's okay. At any point, a parent can actually resend that. So that's why it's so variable, the amount of money that we get. It all depends on what we claim, and then if parents continue to give us that consent or not.
And this is why it's also so critical to make sure that there's an ease of reporting this information for the service providers, because it can be very time consuming to submit all of the, if you have, say, if you're a speech pathologist and let's say you have 20 kids on your caseload that are eligible for this, and you have to document all those services to then take time to enter all of that information into a system, you need to make sure that's ease. There's some ease to that. Otherwise, that's just one more thing on your list of to-dos that gets time-consuming and burdensome. So.
Okay, and before I give up to Mike, because I know there's a couple other questions, I would love to see like some benchmark data around what we've done historically and how this has improved with the process.
For
Right?
Medicaid?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I think we should have, and not right now, but
Yeah.
when you guys come back, you always come back with great info. So thank you for that. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
My recollection is that we, a lot of years ago, and I assume it's continued, were in fact recovering money from Medicare, anytime we could. And that included services that if we, for example, were providing occupational therapy or physical therapy with our own internal staff, if that was something that could normally be recovered from Medicare, we would in fact make the claim. My recollection is that the money that came back went right to the town budget, though, into the central budget. It wasn't earmarked just for the schools, but it offsets the budget, and it's good to capture. So I like to see us trying to get more formalized about that and work the system to make it a little easier for our staff to do that. The only other comment I would have is I like the alignment with the audit. Clearly we took the audit seriously, and we're taking the advice and trying to work through that to make the improvements we need to make. So good job on that. And yeah, keep us posted on how the Medicare piece goes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else? Well, thank you all again. Appreciate it. Anything else, Mr. Bauer, before we move on to unfinished business?
Nothing at this time. Just thank you to our special education team, our student services team. They've been working really hard and doing a great job, but still a lot of work to do.
All right, Mr. Bauer with the unfinished business.
Yes. Switch over. So we're moving into making the recommendation for a second reading of our competency determination policy. I'll pull this up for you. It's in the folder. Again, as a reminder that as MCAS is no longer a graduation requirement, we have been tasked with adopting a competency determination policy for a local graduation requirement that applies to the class of 2025. And we made a decision, as we discussed earlier, that I'm just going to go back to the piece that's most important. We expect that we'll receive further guidance from the state. So we've kept this very basic, as most districts throughout the Commonwealth. and that is to create the competency determination that is based upon the courses that traditionally would prepare for administration of that test in the sophomore year. For example, 2 lab sciences with a passing grade, 9th and 10th grade math courses, and 9th and 10th grade ELA courses with a passing grade. And that's our standard, as a passing grade. Again, our courses are aligned to DESE standards. Again, this in combination with our graduation requirements, that would then in turn be able to award a diploma to our seniors. So we've set this up to look in tiers. So really, this year, most of the students have already passed the MCAT, so they've already met the competency determination. But we're obligated to look back to 2003 for those students who may not have achieved a passing score and therefore did not receive a diploma. So we've been working on that process. Most students complete their MCAS in our district, so it's not a big number at all. But again, we're keeping this very simple. The fact that we expect more guidance from the state within. I know right now they're going through and talking about it, so this may change in the next year. So we've approved the first reading, so bringing it forward to approval for a second reading and approval of this policy.
Trying to clear my screen here. Okay, do I have a motion to approve? I can't see it. Oh, here, it's gone. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the? Yep, there it is. Yep. Motion to approve the competency determination policy, second reading.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed, none. The motion carries. Okay, on to new business and
Thank you.
monthly budget report.
So I've prepared for you this evening, or earlier in this last week or so, a report of the status of the operating budget through the end of February. It continues with a lot of the same themes that we've been talking about for the last several months. We did actually see an uptick in the projection for the out-of-district tuitions. I think there were a couple of new placements and one evaluation, I think, that is the result of that out of the Student Services Office. We also did see the legal services line run into the red for the first time this year. It's not entirely atypical. It can vary from one year to the next, depending on what particular sorts of issues they might be faced with. Last year, I think a lot of it was driven by the fact that we were doing contract negotiations with a lot of our units, and so there was a lot of legal involvement in that process, but that's not going on this year. This year, it's other sorts of things. And also the fact that I have been trying to anticipate what we will be spending through the end of the year rather than just waiting for it to happen. So there is a purchase order open, for example, that we've encumbered funds for some of the legal services. But I mean, other than that, it's not a dramatic change from the past. It's still not good news. So we are facing a deficit that we do expect to be able to close with the resources that we have on hand. We're waiting still to get some of the reimbursement from the state for the transportation costs that we have been faced with this year. They will advance the payment of that reimbursement. Typically it comes the following year, but they're going to pay it some this year so that we can use it to offset the actual costs at the time that we're paying for
Pam,
them.
can I just ask one question?
Of course.
We're having technical issues bringing it up. Can you speak to where we are according to the budget, where you think we'll land? Because we literally cannot see the numbers. So wondering if you could just share some of that with us verbally.
Sure. I mean, with the exception of some of the instructional assistance support that we've needed, the salary piece of the budget is on track. And Same with the supplies and the other sort of licenses and things like that that are sort of typical costs that were within the normal range. Where we're seeing the challenges are with out-of-district tuition and with out-of-district transportation, special ed transportation, where last month, I believe, the expected overage on the tuition was just under $100,000, and now we're looking at $242,000. So we've had 3 or 4 students who have, I think 3, who have had out-of-district placements in the last 6 weeks or so, 5 or 6 weeks, and so those additions to the projection through the end of this year have caused that deficit to grow.
Is that inclusive of the transportation for the new out-of-district?
No, that
Okay.
is just for the tuition piece.
So you said 100,000 to 240,000?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. In terms of the deficit, like in terms of beyond what we had budgeted to cover. And then the transportation is very close to where it was last month. It's gone up a little bit, but not to nearly the same degree. So we have a lot of resources. The district is in a fortunate place in the sense that we have had a good process in place to carry over our circuit breaker reserve from one year to the next, and that provides us a cushion to deal with challenges, but this is the 3rd or 4th year in a row that the district has faced these challenges, and it is not unique to Danvers. It is something that almost, I can't really think of anybody I've spoken to that is not facing this sort of challenge in their district. But it is something that we had hoped a few years ago was a blip in the normal course of things, because it does often ebb and flow. This is now the 4th year, I think, that we have seen this sort of challenge, 22, 23, 24, 25. And I do think that the slope of the challenge that we're facing has started to be less steep with the investments that we've put in terms of the programming and the staffing and the oversight and the audits and all that kind of stuff. The transportation coordinator to kind of be looking at that on a daily, weekly basis. But it's going to take time for those investments to really pay off and result in the absence of these kinds of challenges. So,
Any questions or comments? Well, Mr. Crane?
I would just say, I think you sort of hit the nail on the head, Pam. This is happening everywhere, particularly when it comes to special education costs. And it's one of those things where, from a state level and a local level, it's not very easy because it's so unpredictable. And it's the most unpredictable thing we deal with in our budget. And as a state/country, we've probably got to look at different ways to deal with the funding for special education students. And so, yeah, I recognize it's an issue. You're right, it's been an issue for several years, but very hard to get a handle or anticipate in February of a given year when we're passing our budget what it's going to look like February or a year from now. So yeah, just keep doing what you can to find savings everywhere we can in the budget reasonably. And, I appreciate your hard work on this.
To the chair. So a couple of things. One, the link didn't line up well. I'll make sure I resend that. But Pam and I have done a lot of work in terms of looking at where we are, and as flattening off the curve is true. Because this is the 4th year of being in a deficit this time. Obviously, 2 years ago, 2023, there was quite a bit of money that was utilized at ESSER, and they took salaries off, but there's still a pretty good deficit, and we're about the same as we were last year, except we are less in some areas in terms of transportation and the special education services, although lately we've had a few evaluations that we have to do and we will do. But right now, as we talked about the instructional assistants that we're utilizing, that we brought in to help support programs, in addition to what we, the allocation from last year, that's what we're working with. So a lot of things we're looking for, the reimbursements as well as that 104 per day to help offset these things as we're looking. And as the shelters close, the shifting of needs for our students. So it's a balancing act, but certainly this is not where we want to be in terms of the functioning of the budget, but it's really the reality of where a lot of districts are right now. Unfortunately, we're planning ahead, so we know that we'll be able to close the books, but everything has a reaction, right? So if the legal fees on one side with one set of attorneys going up as we're doing a lot more training, our special education side, a lot more training, a lot more work with our teams, and some complex cases that require a higher level of help, that's what we're going to do to ensure that the proper services are in place. And as we talked about, the tuition out is a little bit lower, although we've had a few bumps lately. But you could attest that we are better in some places, but again, more work to be done. And I have to commend Pam for her work and keeping us informed, and it's important to keep the committee informed as well. So I can also send you the analysis that we did over the last 4 years just to show it's been a pattern, and I know the town has helped us with some help along the way in past years, and we're hoping to get out of that. And I think it's reflective of the conservative budget we're coming in with this year as well.
No, thanks, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, item B, Holton Richmond Program of Studies.
Great. I'd love to call up Ellen Furyk, Curriculum Director, and she'll do the presentation of the Holton Richmond Program of Studies proposed revisions. And this only requires a vote for first time, just a vote of approval.
Good evening. So we're asking that you please consider the following changes and revisions to the Holton Richmond Program of Studies for the 2025-2026 school year. So we've revised the description of the interdisciplinary team organization section of the Program of Studies to reflect the change that we made this year from a content-based model of special education services to a team-based model. So we just revised the language to reflect current practice there. The English Language Arts course descriptions have been revised for grades 6 through 8 to reflect the adoption of the fish tank curriculum program that we're piloting this year and will be fully adopting for next year. We've also revised the science course descriptions similarly to also reflect adoption of the Open SciEd curriculum program that we'll be implementing in 2025-2026. We've revised our description of Project Hawk, our social emotional learning program, or not program, but our activity block during the day to reflect some changes in programming anticipated for next year. As Mary alluded to, the Wayfinder program has been purchased, so removed language around some of the other programs that we're using currently. As Mary talked about, we've implemented the WIN block this year in grade 6. We anticipated WIN block for this year, so it's actually already mentioned in this year's program of studies, but now that we have a little better sense of what it looks like, we added more language there and a more detailed description. And then finally, item 6, we've revised course names and descriptions for the art courses in grades 6 through 8. And then finally, revise the titles for the student support services staff, previously known as our guidance counselors, to just reflect changes throughout the district that shift from guidance counselors to counseling staff. Any questions?
Any questions? Okay. Can I get a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the changes and updates to the HRMS Program of Studies for the 25-26 school year.
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
Okay.
DCAT, just one thing, if you could just check to make sure the projection for our audience at home is flush with the slides. Just had some feedback that might not be the case. It's not. Oh, I know you're not DCAT, I just keep looking back there. You're not. Okay.
Okay, pre-K tuition presentation and recommendation.
Okay. So last year we presented our recommendation for a tuition increase, and that was based on the audit findings of our pre-K programming. And last year we took a conservative approach and looked at one layer of an increase and then coming back in the second year. So this is year two with the recommendation. So again, our program is outstanding. We have certified teachers, facility support staff. We have outstanding school support with our OT, PTs, SLPs, BCBAs, all these initials, which are great resources for all of our students and the school psychologist that is available. And when we look at comparables around surrounding districts, we have a very competitive and robust program and certainly in line financially. In fact, we think we have a great deal for our students. And before last year's increase, the rate was not increased in 15 years. So we're looking at a phased-in approach. And again, we still have a capacity to increase enrollment, although we're robust and our enrollment went up this year. And I'll go through this in a second. So just basically a breakdown of our full day, half day, and our learning centers. You can see the hours of operation and how many, the models and how many students are in there. But at the bottom, you can see the enrollment. We went from 119 last year to 128, and we still have room for 13 more students. Our marketing has improved, and Bethany Stangus, who is doing the work of coordinating our pre-K programming, along with Derek Munyon, has done a really nice job with building the program. We've moved everything to Riverside, so that has helped in terms of the staff being able to work together, development together. We have improvements coming to the courtyard this spring, so a lot of good things are happening with our pre-K program. Currently, if you look at our full day and our half day 4 days, half day 5 days, which is in the afternoon, you can look at the annual. Last year we looked at the hourly rate, but frankly that got to be confusing because there are variances and differences with towns in terms of length of days and such, so we went with the annual. And we looked at the comparables, we were in a pretty good place with the annual tuition and the half day. And again, the increase has helped us with training and development for instructional assistants, as well as curriculum development resources, which I think has been outstanding. So the recommendation is to, again, one more increase. And I will say this too, our projection at this point, if accepted, for an increase is to leave it at this and leave it alone for a while. Again, you would say roughly, I believe we're $8.50 an hour, and our projection, this comes out to $10 an hour, and we're going to leave it at that over time. And we feel that still is a good deal with the services that are required. And we've helped families with financial assistance if needed, and I think that's important to note. And if you look at the comparable averages, we have 10 districts that we've used for comparables, and I'll turn the page in a second, but when you look in the full day tuition, we are up a little bit more, but I think that does factor that we are looking to limit the increase this year if accepted. And again, not bring another increase for a long time, we hope. But we know that other towns are still kind of in the boat, and they're looking at evaluating their programs as well. And when you look at the comparables and breaking it down, there's a lot of numbers on that page, and it might be, but we put the FY or SY, school year 25, program details on the left column. The middle column is what our rates would be, and the plus minus. So you can see it's up and down, but it does fit within the communities around us in terms of alignment. And I know that some of the feedback we received, some of the towns, they were like us and haven't really increased their rates either. So we want to be competitive, but also the extra funding this year for the increase has allowed us, again, some of the money goes back into the program that we can utilize to help support some of our IAs that we've brought aboard, as well as the training that's necessary. And I don't know if, Derek, if I've left anything out, Mr. Munyon, I know. Okay. So we were looking for, if possible, and again, knowing tonight if it's something that the committee would like to, think about for the next month, if there's further information you'd like me to bring back, or if you're comfortable making a recommendation, or if not, it's kind of just leaving it right now. We have a month to play with if you decide that you'd like more information for me to bring back and present, or if you're comfortable now with the recommendation to go up to increase, we could do that this time at the will of the committee.
I leave it to the committee. Any questions or comments? Do we know how competitive we are with private pre-K in town, cost-wise, anyway?
We are a good deal compared to, they're more expensive than we are. I don't know exactly all the pre-K programs around, but, and some of them actually, they're longer days as well. Our days aren't quite as long as some, like we don't have extended time where, students can stay till 4 or 5 for pickup.
Right. Are the parents aware of this, or have they heard the rumblings that we were considering doing this, or has there been parent input to this?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so going back to slide 3 on this, on the DPS pre-K structure. All right, so we went from 121 to 133 from year 22 to 23, then it dropped in 24. Do we think that's connected with anything other than the birth rate, or?
Which, I'm sorry, Mr.
Sure.
Which slide?
If we, on the DPS pre-K structure, which has
I'm the wrong way.
there we go, down the bottom.
Yes.
So we did see a drop from 23 to 24.
Yes, and I don't know the exact rationale for that.
Okay.
That could vary. As we looked at last year, in terms of the marketing of and information that was available,
Mhm.
we did improve that area. I don't know if it goes in waves where, because you could see back in 2021, it was a little bit lower, then it went up, then it went down, and went back up. So I'm not sure what to explain to that specifically.
Mm.
But I definitely could find out more information if you'd like.
Yeah, here's the thing. I'm glad that we split this over 2 years. I don't love the increase at the full-time level for the parents, because I think it's like $1,100. Having said that, I guess the proof is in the pudding. If we were to approve this tonight and then you come back in a year and we find out that the numbers have dropped, that may be an indication to us that we're overpriced versus the community. Maybe not, maybe. So I could approve this. I could see myself approving this, and then let's see what the effect on the product is, so to speak.
Well, one thing I'd like to say, and I appreciate that. Mr. Munn, would you mind coming forward? I should have had him come up forward anyway. Thank you.
All right. One of the things that I wanted to mention too, when considering the comparison between private and our preschool, having been a former preschool director in my previous district, is just the special education teacher portion of the preschool program. And so that is different from what you would typically see in a daycare setting or a private preschool setting. They're fantastic, but it's just a different level of experience that I feel warrants that additional increase. Looking at the prices, looking at the rates, it's very similar. In my former district, we were having similar discussions about tuition, and we were in a similar position to where we didn't necessarily, it wasn't changed for quite a while. And so I would say, looking at the numbers here, I would say that's rather consistent for preschool, just based on my experience. My experience was with a smaller district, but I think you see an ebb and flow sometimes of around 10 kids. And it's not unusual to see what you see up there in 2023 and 24. So I think the biggest thing is really just the special education teachers and just the variety of resources that are available to not only special education students, but to all of the students that are within the program, peers, and anyone that is part of it. So I didn't want to leave that out.
Would you mind talking about that? Because the tuition
Sure.
does change for students with services.
Sure. Absolutely. So when you have students that receive special education services, you're not required to pay for services within preschool. So when you're looking at IEP services, you're looking at providing free and appropriate services to students at no cost to the parent. So when we're looking at the tuition piece, what we are looking at is the peers and trying to ensure that we have enough peers to keep the ratio that's required for integrated preschool programs, which is 51% of students not on IEPs and 49% of students that are on IEPs. And so it's really trying to, and it is certainly a challenge, and it looks like Danvers has done a great job. In my former district, we certainly had difficulty with bringing in enough peers to be able to sustain a program. So just looking at the overall numbers, it feels like we're in a really good spot there. But like you said, it is true based upon the increase. If you do see a drastic change in numbers, I think that's certainly also telling. But I wanted to mention that special education piece just because it can be so beneficial to students, not only on IEPs, but students that are in the class as a peer model.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. You want me, just in case, or do you want me to go?
All right, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Is the committee comfortable with moving ahead with Mr. Bauer's recommendation today, or do we want to wait?
If I could.
No, go ahead.
My daughter is in second grade, and just knowing what we paid for a private preschool, that increase is not, again, to Mike's point, like comparatively to the other options in town, even within the town borders, it's still, even with an increase, it's still very very much on the cheap end comparatively. I wouldn't see an issue with it going forward.
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the new proposed fee structure.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carries. Okay, on to school choice.
Thank you, Mr. Munyon, for that piece as well. So, as I informed the committee, I believe it was last spring and certainly during the budget season, that I would bring information about school choice, knowing that we have a hearing in April, as we're required by law to have a school choice hearing to opt out of school choice. That's a regulation. So I put together some information just so the committee can consider, prior to the next month's hearing on school choice. So I think the big piece about it is that, we do have to have a public hearing before June 1st. We have it in April. And it requires a vote to opt out of school choice. And we have in Danvers. I don't believe Danvers has ever participated in school choice. And obviously the law does say that you can be part of the school choice program as a receiving district. But certainly it's out there that anybody can participate in this. So the status that we are in now, we don't receive students, but students can go out of our district, and we can't impede that. And I have some data in there right now. I think it's like 54.4 students last year are out of district in different choice situations. And I think that the big piece too that's important is that with school choice, if we decide to opt in, there's a number of financial pieces that are important. And part of that is, the sending district is $5,000 tuition, and that's set by the state, the $75 administrative fee per student. Parents are responsible for transporting their children to school, so we do not have to provide transportation. And certainly, receiving districts can limit the amount of seats that are available and can put on per grade, which is important because if you look at a projection of enrollment, knowing if class sizes are very tight, you would not offer seats at that particular grade. And the other part too is that the process itself is that if we receive more applications than seats, for example, if we set a limit of 10 seats at grade 6, 10 at 7, 10 at 8, and we exceed the amount of applications, we have to have a blind draw, right? And there's a whole process that we would follow through, so it has to be a random selection without any discrimination. And we also have to advertise that we would be involved with the school choice program. But it's very limited in terms of like what that advertisement would be, and you can see it varies by district. But the thing that's important to note is that all the districts around us participate in school choice in terms of being able to receive students. You know, Beverly, Manchester, Essex, Newburyport, Salem, Masco, Hamilton, Wenham, Reading, Triton, a lot of districts, you know, our students can, thank you student services team, they can receive our students. But we are not in a position because we opt out of this every year to receive students that may want to come to our district. So I think the consideration is that, and you can see that off of last year's data, 57.4 students. And the 0.4 means if a student goes out like, you know, with 4 months left of the year, that's how it's calculated. The tuition out that the town pays is $441,870. That doesn't come out of the school coffers, it comes out of the town coffers. Okay. Now, as I note, please note that the tuition's $5,000, the administrative fees are $75 per student. The one piece with special education, if a child receives services that are above what the school can provide, you charge the sending district that amount, that overage. As an example, if you had a student that would require occupational therapy services and you have to bring an outside provider in, then you would bill that sending district for that. That's why that number 441 is higher than if you would 5,000 times the 57.4. Again, transportation provided by the parent and guardian. If in an IEP there's something that is written in that a child receives transportation, then the sending district pays for that, not the receiving district. Okay? And currently, our staff does not have an option to bring their child into our district if they live outside of the district. There's nothing in our contract. So this is a means too that, you know, staff could utilize school choice as an option, and that's nice if they can bring their child here, and it's great for teacher retention. But we also control the amount of available seats per year, and that can vary each year, but also the determination of the school committee, if you opt in, you still have to have the hearing every year and make that decision. So I guess what I'm saying to consider, if we decided to enter school choice, and after a year the committee decides to change their mind due to other factors, you can do that. Okay, the one piece that's important to note with school choice is that once you accept the student in, they're with you through graduation. So playing out the scenario, let's say that school choice, we opt in for a year, and then after 1 year saying, you know, we want to pause it and not do it for the next year, the students that came in would still stay with us for the remainder of the time until they graduate. So I think it's important to note that Chapter 70 funding, as we've talked about, like we would not receive, if we decide to join school choice, so any child that would come to us, we did not receive that Chapter 70 funding. We just get the $5,000 tuition and any overage for special education, but we can count the enrollment towards our foundational budget, which if you remember this year, we're at $75 per child in the foundational, and we were close to moving to the next level, which would have put us at 104 per day. So that enrollment helps us. Although we don't get the funding specifically, it helps. And again, the tuition funds aren't counted in our budget. So schools that utilize school choice, you know, it's a fund that is available, and really, there's no restrictions on use. So you would have it in a fund kind of like in a revolving account to some degree, but the account can build over time. Let's say that you have a project that you would like to undertake, a capital project that's above our budget, the town's budget, you could utilize that. Let's say if we had a revamp on technology, you could use that for that. If you had a shortfall in maybe a couple of key positions, you could use that for short term. So the funding is something that is really flexible. And I want to say that, you know, there's pluses and minuses to school choice. You know, I think the pluses outweigh the minuses. And I think the minuses are a lot of times perception and how that looks in terms of the functionality of it. That's what I mean. In terms of somebody that, as an assistant principal, was in a district that had school choice, you know, really did not notice a difference in operational, did not notice students that were in choice and who were not on choice. Just couldn't tell the difference. But I think when you consider this, you know, it's the financial piece that I think is important. But I look at, like, we have a great district. we offer many outstanding opportunities for students, and I think we would be attractive because of our great services, and I think people would take advantage of that. And there's lots of reasons why people would opt out of a district, many reasons. And I think taking a look at, where money may go, and I just did a quick baseline of tuition. And I just put 25 students. I didn't break it down like 5 across the grades, but whatever that breakdown would be. So if we were to bring in 25 students, we would bring in the tuition of the 5,000. That's there. That's money we could utilize. And then that grows if you continue with 25 seats over time, and that tuition grows as well. So in a lot of ways, it is a revenue source. I look at districts around us are doing this, and our students, have opportunities to go out. I would love to review, and we have a discussion in April, to be able to consider bringing students into our district. And I think we would bring students in, not only potentially faculty member students, but other students that would see value in all the programming that we have. I've known some situations where families work close to a district, and transportation, that makes sense for them and for a family decision, and various reasons. So I'm bringing this to you to see this is the research, this is what school choice is in a nutshell, so that when we get to the hearing in April, we have time. If you have questions that you want me to research further, bring further information, I'm more than happy to do that. But I think there's a lot of benefits to consider as a committee. So I'm open for any questions, or if there are things that you want me to do for further research. And if you don't have those questions now, certainly can do that work over the course of the month before we get to the hearing.
Not so much a question, but a big thank you to responding and delivering this. I will personally say, as being a part of this committee, there were too many votes where I sat here and it was like school choice, but no information. And I've heard a lot of misinformation about school choice from people in the community and from members of this school committee. I think people in the community are afraid of school choice. This is literally the most information I've ever seen about this. I've actually sat with some parents who presented me with information that was 100% false, and I hope we can get this information out, and we probably should, so parents can see exactly what it is. Some examples of misinformation are, if we take a school choice student, we're responsible for any special education needs, which, based on your presentation, is completely false.
And if you mind, Chair, we're responsible for the services. If anything goes above and beyond what we can provide, then the sending district is built for that.
Okay.
So if it and I think that's a great question, because our resources are where they're at. You wouldn't want to put something in place that would require more resources to come in. So that's the complement to this program, is that, so baseline, if a student has, if they need physical therapy, and we can make that work. But if we have to bring in outside, contracted services for that or for other students, then that's the billing portion that I think is important to note. I did speak with a number of superintendents that have choice in their district, and most of it was positive, and most of it is about it adds to their school district. And certainly we've seen some declining, and although we're stable now, but we're facing some challenging times ahead of us. And I'd like to think that I see great things in our district, and I know we would be attractive. Again, I don't know projecting it out. We would have to really do a deep dive into how many seats we would offer. And my suggestion is to be a little conservative in year one,
Absolutely.
just to make it work. But I'm more than happy to tighten this up and share this with the community at the will of the committee.
Another follow-up to that is, if we do take a school choice student and they need to get placed at a landmark or to leave our district, to be out of district, what happens with that cost?
So that again goes above and beyond what we would be able to offer. So you work with the sending district, who would be financially responsible for the majority of that. So there are advantages to the program because of that option. So again, that is a service that would be required outside of what we could have. So the teams would meet but ultimately the responsibility would be on the sending district.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I wanted to ask. I don't know if you have
And I'm,
anything.
through the chair, I'm happy to drill down even deeper on that to give even more specific examples of that.
The, okay, so when you say by the way, I'm looking positively at this. I think it could be good for the district. I have the sense that we have space, and I will tell you that one of the reasons that we did not accept school choice students before this and before the Smith School, say, came online, is that there were times we were busting at the seams at most levels. And so we were, especially before we built the middle school, high school. So I think we got in the habit of just opting out. But I feel like we have some more space now. And the opportunity to use that space both to offer our educational services and to offset some of the students who are going to other districts, I think is a great idea. I want to follow up on what Gabe said when you talked about if you had to send a student out of district. And you said you'd work with the other district and they would be responsible for the majority of it. It's obviously not hard and fast, at least that's what I hear you saying. So it's possible we'd be paying part of the landmark tuition and that the sending district would be paying part, or?
For the feedback that I've received from other superintendents is that they basically, the majority is paid by the sending district. So
Okay.
I'll be able to dig in and give you the off of that, because typically some feedback is they've paid for all.
Okay, yeah,
Is
okay,
above.
that would be nice to know.
Yep.
The other thing is, so if what you said is that for the students who go out of Danvers, the town pays the tuition, it doesn't come out of our budget. When students come into Danvers, that $5,000, is it hard and fast that that comes into our budget, or can the town say, wait a minute, we're paying $400,000 to send students to other districts? This money should come to us. And how is that?
So the experience, as I've spoken with other superintendents, they work it out with their town, so that's the ability to work within the revolving account.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, and that's not a bad thing, frankly, even if it's an offset to what the town's paying out. Hey, we're all sort of we're in one ocean here and we can lift all the boats, which is a good thing.
Right, so I know, and I had a discussion with Rodney about this in preliminary, just saying we're presenting tonight.
Yep.
And I was gonna circle back with him just to make sure we're all on the same page. So when we come back on the April meeting,
Okay.
that those questions are 100% sealed. But that, it's been positive from the principals, superintendents, that I've spoken with,
Sure.
that have choice in being able to utilize the funds to offset. And they do work with the town, so.
Yeah.
We're in a unique situation that the DPW does the maintenance of our buildings, but I know in some districts where that's not the case.
Right.
They may need to use
Most.
some of that funding for some capital improvements where we're kind of in a different situation. So there is a give and take on that.
Okay.
But, I see the benefits of that, the financial piece, huge where it can cover some gaps. Would it be a situation right now with where we're at budgetarily that some of that can be utilized to offset? Absolutely.
Okay. And I guess this is really more out of curiosity, but the students who go to other districts from Danvers, do we have a sense of which districts get the most of our students? I don't know if you do.
I knew you were going to ask that question, or somebody would ask that question. So we are digging into that, but I do know that we have students at Masco. I do know that we have students at Beverly. I do know that we have students at Manchester. So we have students. I don't know the number of students, how many in Hamilton Wenham, but we do. It's a decent number that are out.
Well, that is when you're talking about, what, 57, I think it was.
57.
I kind of thought Masco, only because you've got a lot of people close to the Middleton line. I thought the same thing, perhaps Hamilton Wenham, because we're not that far from the Hamilton Wenham line.
No, we're not, and Beverly right there as well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Look forward to more
And I
information.
think that answers another question. I was under the impression that in order to be able to send students out, you had to participate, but that's not the case. No matter what, Danvers students can go to school choice schools. Interesting. Didn't know that.
I'm glad to hear you say that if we do consider this, you want to start off with a conservative number. I think that's important for a lot of reasons. One, to see how this plays out. But two, as we're aware, but I don't think we've really considered, there's some housing that's going to be occupied in downtown Danvers. We have no idea who's going to have children, if there will be children in the building, but that's something that we're going to have to keep track of too, because we don't want to all of a sudden, be looking to open up a classroom where we don't have space or something like that. So I just want us to consider that as we mull this proposition over.
So I think that brings a good point in terms of looking at, we have an idea of where we are elementary-wise. We know that we're very tight. So, and we also know that particularly in the younger grades, it's great to bring people in because they will stay. However, we need to make sure for move-ins that occur throughout the year that we have enough room and we don't go over our contractual trigger, right, over the maximum in the class where then we pay an additional. We need to make sure that we have a cushion, but also out of respect for elementaries where, there's some balance issues that we've been working through. So, but certainly at the middle school and high school, there's room. And also looking at that carefully, the entry point, like grade 6, for example, and grade 9, are big areas where people look to make a clean start into a new building. But also there could be siblings that would be involved, and if we have elementary seats, we would be very cautious in that piece, but just doing a preliminary look over that, we'd be very, very judicious on that, particularly in year 1. And to your point, if there would ever be a wild fluctuation, that's why it's important that every year that you have to make an opt-in or opt-out. So after a year, we go conservative, we fill the seats, and then there's some different wild influxes, then you could put a pause on that for sure. But I'd also would want to, just like anything else, be able to provide updates in terms of how it's going if the committee decides to take this on. But we did share this with our administrative team, and certainly, we wanted to know any blind spots and areas of concern. And by and large, the feedback was positive, but certainly wanting a little bit more information. But I think we covered everything that's basically in this. But yes, students can go out, they can opt out, and they do. So we want to be in a position that, can we offset that? Would we negate that over time? I don't know, but I do know that we have a lot to offer in this district.
I guess my next question, not a question, but a request out of curiosity. Is it possible to survey all the teachers? Like throw out a survey monkey to see if they bring their kids?
One thing to be careful about, I have run this by the union leadership, but not to great detail. I just said that we'll be presenting, Monday night about this, and I'll bring back more information. You have to be very careful in terms of we have a process that goes through, right? You can't show any favoritism, but I know some districts that it's a nice benefit if that's available and there's seats available. But I can get some information on that for the committee. I think the big thing is there support for this, right? And then overall, would there be an interest if seats are available for them to bring their children here? I could definitely find out a piece of that as long as we make sure that we stay in alignment with the basis of a non-discriminatory practice of accepting students.
If you end up in the position where you have to run the lottery, you can't give favoritism to staff students. So, okay.
I guess another question is in regards to test scores. When we do tally test scores, are out-of-district students considered in your district with their scores, or does their score go back to their town? And the town where they take the test. Yeah. Your mic wasn't on, so I said that for you.
Mic's on.
Okay.
Yes. Where the child takes the test, the district, that's where the scores go.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, that was a fantastic presentation. It's literally the most information I've ever seen on this. So really, really appreciate that. And a pleasant surprise to the agenda for me personally in regards to the amount of detail that you put in here. So really appreciate your response and time on it. And now off to secondary curriculum director realignment.
Okay. So the secondary curriculum director realignment, as noted with our budget, I think we've done a really nice job of minimizing reductions across the board overall, but there is one reduction that will take place this year, and it is we're going to go down one curriculum director at the secondary level. That's important to note because that in itself, again, we're in a tight budget year, but I also look at it as an opportunity to really revamp the secondary curriculum director's position and also really merge the two schools, Holton Richmond and the high school, into a curriculum director into one position. And I think the rationale for the change is very simple. There's a budgetary item that is necessary. But two other items that are important is that always looking for vertical alignment between the two schools, I think is critical. And really just having a chance to sit back and observe for a year in the district and seeing that the elementary curriculum director has a team to work with. The directors at the middle and the high school, although they work with the administrative team, they just don't really have like a team like the elementary does. And I really believe wholeheartedly that to move curriculum in a school, you need distributed leadership. You need others to take on the work, i.e. the teachers. And I think having a structure that involves a team that involves with leadership and the teachers is an effective way to move schools forward. And we have great potential in both schools to increase our teams. I think, to me, that is something, and Mary and I, we've talked a lot about this. If we can emulate a team like the elementary at the secondary level, I think there's huge upsides to that. If you take a look at the curriculum leadership alignment that we have right now, where Mary, the assistant superintendent, works with the elementary curriculum director, notice there's a team underneath that, the math, literacy, and SEL coaches. We have the middle school curriculum director, the high school curriculum director, we have a K-12 health and PE, Drew Betts, and then Mary has an ESL team that she works with to coordinate the curriculum across the district. What I'm proposing with the team approach is that to streamline this with the assistant superintendent still working with the directors, but an elementary curriculum director and a team, the secondary curricular director and a team, still keep the same and see if I can build a team with the K-12 health and PE and SEL still has the team. So right now, if you look at the elementary, that's the team, right? We've seen that, you've seen that in presentations. And I also want to note that this is not knocking the work that the directors in the schools have been doing. I'm not knocking that at all. I'm looking for opportunities to really harness and really start to move things forward in more of a structured approach. Looking at a draft model, and again, this is a draft, really raw model of a secondary curriculum director and creating the team of STEM, humanities, and performing arts, right? And then harnessing the lead teachers as well underneath those particular strands. So when you look at STEM, humanities, and performing arts, we don't have the funding right now to put in a member of a Unit A just solely will dedicate to that. We don't. Can that be done in combinations? And the answer is yes. Can we leverage existing stipends and see if we can dig in deep and create a few more? Absolutely. Can we have a STEM leader at both the high school and the middle school? Can we have a humanities leader at the high school, middle school? And we already have a performing arts leader that is doing work right now with both the high school and middle school. So this has been in work. That piece, I think you can. And I think that those particular leaders would work closely with that secondary curriculum director. It's already happening at the high school because we had a change this year. As you know, Peter took the reins at the high school. We developed some stipends for humanities and a STEM leader that worked closely with him, and they in turn did a lot of the work with their teams throughout the school, the high school. So I see that as the evolution of creating that also at the middle school. And I think that will in turn create more distributive leadership and more teacher involvement in our curricular work. And we already have a bunch of things in place. I think that in itself will allow more streamlining. So the responsibilities, this is just a brief overview of, the responsibilities for developing budgets, grant opportunities, working with the assistant superintendent, wide professional development, working with the whole school, both schools, bringing them together, increased capacity for communication about teaching, learning, and assessment, develop tools to assess student learning. Those are all things that we have, but that would be done at a focus of a 612 model. So the bottom line is, at this point, moving and consolidating that director is there, but there's a lot of work that still needs to take place. And that is consulting with the assistant superintendent, but also the incoming assistant superintendent. Working with the building principals, working with staff, working with the union for ways that we can develop those teams at both the middle and the high school that can help share the work with the secondary curriculum director. And I think those teams are really, really important. And also that goes in tune with designing professional development. It's start of the year, early release, the PD in January, the study groups that take place, and then also working on how that person split and do teacher evaluations that they do. So it's changing the approach from just being building-based to secondary-based, but the overall goal is to create a streamlined system that I believe will help increase vertical alignment and create a strong team in utilizing our great resources of our teachers that already are doing a lot of the work, but I think really streamlining it further. So as a budgetary need, which is always a tough thing, I look at it as opportunity to really streamline the process. So that's the presentation. Again, a lot of work to do, but that is the nuts and bolts.
Any commentary? I'll just say I fully support it. I know there are hard decisions that have to be made, but it completely makes sense in regards to building a team at the secondary level. So thank you for that. That's my only comment.
Yeah, I tend to think this is really something that we bring a superintendent in for, to say, look, this is the structure I think will work best to get the job done at this point in time. And this, so it's my position is I'm going to support you in creating the structure you want, unless it's out in outer space somewhere. But this is not unreasonable. So yeah.
Is the new assistant superintendent aware of the structural change?
Yes, we've discussed it recently. I've shared this presentation with her. She's been coming in the district, and I'm planning on bringing together a meeting with her. First step to me was presenting tonight to getting this out there, and then the next step is to follow up the next steps. But I would like her and Mary to be directly involved as this evolves, along with I think it's important to have the principals involved and having Julie and her team, because there's that close piece of working together. And again, this is not knocking, the existing structure. It's looking to streamline and improve where a budgetary piece, but also I think to provide, like I said, the alignment and teacher teams.
Are we able to keep that person, or are we losing a person?
That's up in the air at this time.
So, okay.
Yeah. There's a process that we'll go through, and that'll be coming out shortly. So
Thank you.
Good. No? Okay. All right, now to the order of business, consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
We had a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I don't know if this is the moment for it, but in regards to discussion, just for fundraising, just in general, I did have a lot of parents reach out regarding the basketball fundraiser and the various committees. And I think when we do mass fundraisers, that is a central location that will cross where it's more like a mass fundraiser that incorporates all schools, that we have a more detailed conversation, just to ensure that there's not only equitable distribution, but equitable work that goes into something like that, just so everyone can kind of participate in something like that. I feel that, when large fundraisers like that are planned, um, and parents don't know that they're attending an event that's majority benefiting one school over the district, it creates some confusion. So some clarity around that would be great. And I thought I had to squeeze that there because I almost forgot about that. But just transparency around that would be wonderful. I don't know if anyone has any other comments around that.
I concur. I concur with that position. I had same experience with a number of parents reaching out about the same thing. So thank you for bringing that up.
No problem.
If I could, through
Yeah,
the
sure.
chair, we have a central PAC meeting coming up, I think in a month, and certainly we'll discuss it at that piece. There's always good intentions, but there's always ways that we can continue to work together, and that will be on the agenda for that. And also, please note too that there's been some really nice work. There'll be something coming out, Rock the Spectrum, with some free tickets available. That two parents have reached out to a foundation in ways we can help students that might have difficulties with the sensory of a large event. And there are tickets that the PAC has put aside for families that may have financial need, and they'll work with the principals. So there is that piece, but I will work with, and I'll report back to the committee on that to continue to work in collaboration with PACs.
Fantastic. With that, all those in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. Motion carries. And Mr. Secretary, the minutes.
I move to approve and release the minutes from the February 3rd, February 10th, and February 24th, 2025 regular meetings, and to approve but not release the minutes from the February 14th, 2025 executive session.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. Motion carries. And on to communication. Any items on communication? Okay, legislation?
I don't have a report regarding any state legislation or issues tonight. The federal side is, I think, where we need to keep focusing, because there continues to be, and it seems like the push to eliminate the Department of Education at the federal level continues. And some say, well, what does it really do? Well, it makes sure that the money for Title I and the money for special education and other grant programs gets to the right places. And that's important, because otherwise what's going to happen is you will spread out different of the financial functions to different federal departments. So that's one thing. The other thing is there continues to be talk about the budget that will be presented, the initial budget that will be presented by the Republicans may in fact have cuts to Medicaid and Medicare. Now, Medicaid in particular is, assists a lot of low-income families. And I think we get some I don't know if the Title I money is from Medicaid. I don't believe so. But certainly it will put families in a more difficult position in Danvers and in other places. So I think we have to keep a close eye on those things that can affect funding to Danvers and other systems. And I think when I went through last month, it was like $1.5 million that we get federally. That's a big chunk. That could make a difference in what we can do for our students. So I think it's important that we keep talking about that. And if things really start to heat up, we need to maybe do some advocacy with our legislators and take it to a logical place where we can preserve the funding we need.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any updates from the subcommittee? Mr. Shannon?
Curriculum and assessments meeting later this month. But today I attended my second Danvers Cares meeting, and I am happy to announce that the average number of attendees over 2 meetings was 23. It's very well attended. we enjoyed a presentation from Liz Farrier today, a licensed social worker, who focused on anxiety, basically coming into the school, and I think you're going to hear more about that from our social workers. It's a conversation that needs, I believe, to continue with parents in the district across town. So we'll see what happens. Very impressive. Made me reflect on my childhood. It was, I could talk about it for the next hour. It's great. In fact, I'm going to. No. There was a youth leaders update that they talked about DHS student leaders going down to Holton Middle School, the Rising Leaders Program, that's going very well. Light the Night Purple, which recognizes mental health and substance abuse, is tentatively scheduled for May 13th. There is a college planning seminar in the Gordon Room at the library on 3/19, and I believe you have to register for that through the library. I went to one a couple of years ago. It was actually very good. I recommend it. If it's the same gentleman, he was fantastic. And I was remiss earlier in recognizing, when looking at my notes, students at DHS, there was a group from our Next Gen group that just went out to a conference called Connections Conference at Clark University. It was last, I believe, Friday. And the focus in what Next Gen does is basically develop ways to support the community and make sure that everybody feels like they belong. And I was the benefactor of Next Gen, a Next Gen effort maybe a year or so, a year and a half ago, where they've made up games to drive conversation around difficult topics, difficult conversations. It's educational, but some of the issues are difficult, and it calls for self-reflection and just being open to listen to other people and learning. And kids, these are kids developing these games to drive these conversations. It's very powerful, and I guess they were lauded out at the conference on Friday out of Clark. 600 students go to this conference. It was sold out, and I guess Danvers was well represented in the room. So kudos to that.
Thank you for that.
Just real quick on the Danvers Human Rights and Inclusion Committee. Am I correct that Paul Pollock and Charles Desmond are trying to set up, I think they want to get together with the superintendent?
We have a meeting scheduled, I think, at the end of this week.
Oh, okay, great.
Any other?
Yes, through the chair. Yep. Just to note that our safety meeting will take place at the end of the month, our district safety meeting. The Northeast Consortium had its last board meeting last week, and the preliminary budget piece, they're going through and combing through potential increase. Right now, through first run, it's looks like it might be a little bit higher than anticipated, as the other consortiums are. This is a contractual year for the consortium, so they're going through contractual negotiations. I'll bring back more detailed information on that as it becomes clear, but right now the percentage increase looks to be about 9% right now, which is substantial. But they still have to do their work like we did to bring it down, but also the consideration is that they're going to have to budget for increased contracts. The good news is that the regionalization of transportation, so they have the information and they've sent out bids to the contractors, transportation. So those bids are in alignment with various out-of-district placements that mix and match the communities along the way. So I think that's really, really good news, because we want to see that be able to pay off next year. The third thing is a lot of discussion about Recovery High School, right? And the enrollment has declined. Funding's always in question. So they're putting together a study group, the board members, to really look at ways to make sure that it's sustainable. Is there different marketing that needs to take place? and the funding as well. So stay tuned. I'll keep you posted on that. That's real important stuff. If I could, I'll continue with our deep meeting is coming up next week. Yep, that's coming up next week. And then CPAC, I'll put out a flyer. The annual elections will take place 1 month early on April 1st. And the current board members will be stepping down. So there will be a whole new elected board, and they'll assume those roles immediately following the vote. So I'll put this out in a communication this week. And there is a Google Drive that describes the positions and the responsibilities, and then the way that people can apply for it to be put onto the ballot itself. And the voting takes place on April 1st, but there is a deadline of March 25th if you're interested in for one of the positions: the chair, secretary, treasurer, community leader, resource inclusion and program organizer, and member at large. That's a very important body. So I may put that out as a separate message away from mine so that people can see this. I know CPAC will send this out, and probably Christine as well. So and we'll keep you posted on that. And then I think that is it in terms of subcommittees.
Is through the chair, is there a reason why the entire board is stepping? Are they timed out? Do they get their students out of the?
No, I think it's just a matter of, you know, the time served and moving on. Nothing more than that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do we vote?
Yep, next meeting is April 7th, 2025, and let's close with a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Good night, Danvers. Thank you.